Hi, I'm Jim Fiorentini. Thanks for listening. I wanted to give you an update about a couple of things. First, regarding the COVID-19 crisis. We had this week, the first time since March 15th or 17th, when there were no new coronavirus infections. You only had one case over a 2-day period. Now, this doesn't mean this is over. It means that all of your hard work and sacrifice has really begun to pay off here in this city. We need to keep it up, though. You need to make sure you wear your mask whenever you go out, that you're socially distanced, and we need to keep up the great work. This past weekend, the restaurants in Haverhill reopened outside dining. We think we were the statewide leader in outside dining. We had something like 30 restaurants that were able to open. We sent the inspectors out. They all had the same attitude. We're here to make sure you can open, to do whatever we have to do. We sacrificed beauty for speed. And if you go down to any of the restaurants, you'll see we put up these really ugly Jersey barriers. And we did everything we could to get the restaurants up and running. Restaurants are a very important part of our economy, both here in Haverhill and all throughout Massachusetts. There are 300,000 people in Massachusetts that work in restaurants. 150,000 of them, half of them, were unemployed during the pandemic shutdown. And it's really important to them, to their families, and also to our economy that we get them back up and running as quickly as possible. So that's what we did here in Haverhill. Now, next week, we're going to start by trying to make it a little bit nicer, a little bit more beautiful. We've bought covers for those ugly Jersey barriers, and in 3 or 4 locations, we're going to be replacing the Jersey barriers with what are called parklets. We're going to build out the sidewalk a little bit, make it nice, and have people be able to sit on those. Instead of the ugly Jersey barriers, we'll have planters or covered barriers. We'll make it look a lot nicer than it is. But starting sometime next week or the week after, the governor hasn't told us yet, they're also going to be allowing some indoor dining at the restaurants. As always, it's up to you to determine what you think is safe. I personally feel safe going outside to the restaurants. It's outside. We're sitting 6 feet away. The rules are you have to wear your mask when you go onto their deck or porch or wherever you are. You cannot go to a different table. You have to go right to your table, can't stop and talk to everybody else. And the restaurants have a lot of rules about cleanliness. The waitress has to wear a mask at all times. I feel safe. I don't know if I'm going to feel safe going inside or not, but you use your own judgment. Today I released my budget for FY21, that's fiscal year 21. It went to the City Council today. We'll start some more hearings on it next week. Now, all of you have been reading in the newspapers and seen on TV how all over the country there are massive layoffs of government employees, including policemen, firemen, and school teachers because of the pandemic. The pandemic has caused this pandemic-induced recession. City revenues have plummeted, and we're no exception. Our revenues are going to be down. Our non-real estate tax revenues are going to be down around 20%. Fewer people went to restaurants, so our meals tax revenue was down. Fewer people bought cars, so our excise tax revenue was down. Fewer people fixing up or building new homes, so our building permit revenue was down. And most critically, the state revenues are down $6 billion, so the state isn't able to send us as much aid. That's about 37% of our budget. But we started planning for this years ago. 7 years ago, when I put forth my budget, I called it a budget for today and a budget for tomorrow. Because instead of spending every dime we had, as had been a tradition in some places, we set aside money for a rainy day. And we've been doing that steadily for the last 7 or 8 years. Today, we have the second highest reserves of any gateway city in the Commonwealth. So it's a rainy day fund, which is something that reserves are called. Today, it's a torrential downpour. So we're going to use $7 million in our reserves in order to prevent the types of layoffs that you've seen in so many other cities. And at least for the time being, I'll tell you what I mean by that in a minute, there'll be no layoffs of police officers. We need our police officers. No layoffs of firefighters. In the last great crisis we had, when the Hill Hospital crashed, my predecessor, good man, was forced to close the Bradford Fire Station. We're not doing that. No layoff of police, no layoffs of fire, and most importantly, no layoffs of school teachers. And that is the toughest one, and that's even communities much wealthier than we are being forced to send loads of layoff notices to their school teachers. We are not, because of the use of reserves. Now, I say for now, and here's what I mean. When you budget, you put together what you say your revenues are going to be. The state, when they do their budget, they call it a consensus revenue estimate. We do the best we can. We get our auditor together, myself. We look around at what's happened in past recessions, and we make the best estimate we can of our revenues. We've made an estimate, a hope, a plan, that the state, we know the state is going to cut our local aid that goes to the city. That's called unrestricted local aid, but we are hoping that they will not cut aid to the schools. That's called Chapter 70. We know we're not going to have the big increase that the state promised us. We know they're not able to do that. We understand that. We don't like it, but we understand it. But we're calling upon the state not to cut Chapter 70, the money that goes to the schools. And if they live up to that promise, then we'll be able to live up to our promise that there'll be no layoff in the schools. Now, none of this came easy. In order to put together this budget, I began, hear a lot of noise outside, we began by asking our department heads, all of whom are very, very hardworking and dedicated, to put together a basic bare bones budget, no increases. And we've asked all of the unions to work with us on this. And all of our non-union employees, we told them that their wages have to be frozen for a year. So we got the basic bare bones budget, and then I sat down with my auditor and we began cutting it. And we cut about $1.5 million from the basic bare bones budget. And that still wasn't enough to balance the budget. So we sat down again and went through every line by line, and ultimately we cut $2.4 million from the budget and were able to balance it. Now, I'd like to tell you that you'll never notice a difference, but you will. We were able to avoid layoffs. We were able to keep our vital services intact, but we're not able to do everything that I would like to do. Over the past 5 years, we've been able to replace miles and miles of sidewalk in the city with our sidewalk improvement program. We'll still be able to repair some broken sidewalks, but we will not be able to put in any new sidewalks this coming year. I'm sorry about that, and I hope things turn around and we can replace that. Road paving. Normally, road paving money comes from the state. It's called Chapter 90 money. Last year, for the first time, I said, we're going to match that Chapter 90 money with our own tax money, and we're going to do twice as many roads. We did a lot of roads, a lot of road paving in the fall. We saved some of that money till the spring. One of the first things I did when the pandemic happened, I froze everything, every capital project, and I took that extra road paving money, about $800,000, added it to the budget in order to avoid layoffs. We won't be able to add to the state money for road paving. So unfortunately, not as many roads will be paved this year. And something that really makes our city beautiful, sounds like a really minor thing, but planting trees. It's always been my goal to have tree-lined streets like we all saw years and years ago. If you look at old pictures of Haverhill, Haverhill looks so beautiful, and you wonder what's different about it. It's the trees. All the streets in those days were tree-lined. There was beautiful tree canopy on every street, and it's been lost over the decades. We've been trying to restore that. Unfortunately, this year we had to cut way back on tree planting, unfortunately. We had to cut back on some of our capital projects. We'll be able to do a couple of things. We're doing the high school pool roof right now. We're hoping to come up with money to buy a fire truck, but a lot of our other capital needs are going to have to be postponed for a year. That's the bad news, but the good news is no layoffs. Our kids will have teachers, policemen, firemen. Our city will be safe, and our vital services will be intact. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or you'd like to reach me, email me at mayor@cityofhaverhill.com, or pick up the phone and call 978-374-2300. Great to talk to you. Thanks for listening.